So here's how you find the extrema. You can find this in your textbook in section 3.1, page 165, if I'm not mistaken. So to find the extrema of the continuous function f on a closed interval a to b, use these steps. Find the critical numbers of f in the open interval of a to b. Evaluate each of the critical numbers in the open interval a to b. Evaluate f at each of the endpoints of the closed interval a to b. The least of these values is your minimum, the greatest is your maximum. So first things first, let's find our critical numbers. To find the critical numbers, I need to figure out where my derivative is equal to 0 or where my derivative is undefined. But because we have a polynomial, polynomials are always defined. They're not like, I don't have to worry about that second condition. So I need to figure out where f prime of x will equal 0. That's what I need to do. So using some fancy factoring, 12x squared, x minus 1 equals 0. I get x is equal to 0 or x is equal to 1. Thanks in grade 3 factoring math stuff. All right. So I need to evaluate f at each of the critical numbers in a, b, and I need to evaluate f at each of the endpoints. So at this point, I would recommend you make yourself like a little table. So x value, f prime of x. All right. So I'm going to go left to right between the numbers I have. Negative 1, 2, 0, and 1. I'll start with negative 1. Then I'll do 0. Then I'll do 1. Then I'll do 2. And actually, I misspoke. I don't need to plug this into the derivative. I need to plug it into the original function because, again, I'm trying to figure out the highest and lowest points in the function. So that's why I'm going to go with the original here. All right, so if I plug in a negative 1 in for x, I'll get not negative 3. I'll get 3 plus 4, which gets me a 7. Okay. If I plug in a 0, well, that's easy. I get 0. If I plug in a 1, I get 3 minus 4, which will be a negative 1. And if I plug in the 2, I'll get 3 times 16 minus 4 times 8, which would be 48 minus 32, which is actually 16. Okay? So out of my table, I can do this now. I can tell you where I'm going to have a maximum or a minimum. Actually, the absolute maximum, the absolute minimum in this interval. And here's how I do it. Well, this is my lowest point. So 1 comma negative 1 is absolute minimum. And this is my highest value. So 2 comma 16 is my absolute max. And that's all you really have to do. It's important to keep yourself organized. That's why I made the table. So if you find another way to convey the same information, power to you. All right. Hope it helps.